All right. I believe we are now live. As I just said before I attempted the button, I'm still getting used to EV Mux. So, as we literally just said before this, I'm looking forward to this discussion so much because I have been very stressed the last little bit. So, Johanna, thank you so much for taking part of your Saturday to hang out with me and give me a nice little respite from the stressors of real life.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I am so excited to be on Nerd Level Rising. Like, this is so fun. This is so fun already. I'm so excited to be here. I've been hoping to be invited, honestly, and you were such a fantastic Y Read guest that I was like, oh, I'm so excited to talk with Jake more because I feel like we just have so much we could talk about. So
Oh, absolutely. And thank you.
yeah.
That was so much fun doing that on your channel. That was like, when I started my channel, I was like, I don't want to set super high expectations just in case, right? But I was like, there's a handful of these things that I really want to get invited to do. And that was absolutely one of them from day one. So it
Oh,
was amazing.
thank you. Well, back at you. I wanted to be invited on your channel too, so I'm super super thrilled.
That's so
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Uh, Slay's here. What's up,
Hey,
Slay?
Slay.
David is here. Oh, there's a little delay on my comments. It's so good. Oh, it's so weird getting used to this after StreamYard. What's up, David?
Yeah, this is a
Cross.
new platform to me too. I don't know if I've ever been on a
It's a It's interesting. Respect for this comment. I appreciate that. That's cool. Shay's here. Yeah, it's interesting that like oops, the Mr. Roro, Mr. Goodcat. We got a lot of very professional, respectful sounding names here, Mr. Whatever. Um, EVMux is interesting. It's very similar to StreamYard, it seems, in terms of like how it functions and like on the back end, it looks slightly different, but it's very similar. But I got the bad end of the new StreamYard deal, it seems, where they're slowly changing how many hours you get per month on the free plan.
Oh, how
And
awful. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm the lucky person who rather than 20 hours a month, I get 5. So I was like, all right, we're gonna try some other stuff. But it's been solid so far. So
That's good. I'm
um,
glad that it's working out here. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, you recently got back home from a big vacation. I would love to know how that went.
It was so much fun. Yeah, so, this is something that my husband and I like to do every couple of years, or actually, I have told this story to some people. My husband proposed to me in the airport, and it was kinda I know that that's been done before, it's not the most original thing, but he did it very purposefully because he wanted it to symbolize the many trips that we would take together, the many adventures that
Oh,
we would have together.
nice.
And so
Respect.
that's yeah, and so that's been a huge part of I think our connection is our connection to travel, and so, like,
Mm.
every couple of years, we've tried to go on a big international trip. So our first international trip was to Japan and Thailand, which was phenomenal. Oh my gosh, I loved Japan so much.
I wanna go
And
so
then
bad.
yes, oh, it's amazing. We went to Tokyo and Hiroshima, and then in Thailand, we went to Chiang Mai and to Bangkok,
Okay.
and, yeah, it was an incredible trip, and then we one year we went to let's see, a couple years later, we went to Moorea, which is in the French Polynesian Islands next to Bora Bora. It is gorgeous. It is we got married in Hawaii, and, I think Moorea was even more stunning than
Oh,
Hawaii, which
wow,
is saying
okay.
something. Yeah.
Wow.
And then, then I think our last oh, yeah, we went to Singapore and, Australia a couple of years ago, which was it was just incredible. Went out swimming or snorkeling to the Great Barrier Reef, which was so outside
Wow.
of my comfort zone, but was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life.
Yeah.
And then this trip was to London and to Paris. We had never been to Europe, so it was London,
Mm.
Paris, and Amsterdam. So
Wow. You're giving David a run for his money here, it seems.
I
Uh,
love talking with David about travel. Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't do much when I was growing up. Like, the most travel I had done was Mexico because I have family in Mexico,
Mm.
but I hadn't really done a lot of travel, growing up until yeah, until marriage, and now, like I said, it's something we've tried to do every couple of years,
Yeah.
and
That's so
it's been
cool.
so fun. Yeah.
That's amazing. I definitely wanna hear more about if you have, like, any cool like, any favorite highlights or anything from this recent one, but it's traveling is something that has always scared me. Like, I never traveled at all
Mhm.
growing up. I grew up in Illinois, so we drive to Wisconsin sometimes. That was, like, our travel.
Mhm.
So, for anyone unfamiliar, it's one state away, it's a 3-hour drive. So, we just didn't do anything, and then I was always so scared to fly, and now I've flown a handful of times, and I'm like, I still don't like it. I'm still kind of scared, but it's okay. And I have a bunch of I would love to go to Europe. I'd love to go to Japan. Like there's like a bunch of places, but it's still, it's hard to find the time, and then it's expensive, and you got all this stuff. But someday I'll have my big boy job, and that'll be easier to make that work. But
It will be a lot easier for
yeah.
sure once you're in that stable position, and, if you ever need any tips, let me know because my husband has so many travel hacks, like, he was even
Ooh.
he even has a travel group that he corresponds to, like, online and knows all the ways to get the best deals and how to use
Ah.
credit card points to book flights, and so we do things mostly through that means, like, we try to get as the best deals possible,
Yeah.
and he's done an amazing job with that front, so he's always happy and generous to share tips. So if you ever need any
Awesome.
tips, let me know.
Well, I'll probably probably take you up on that. Let's say hi to a couple other people here real quick. Chances here. Man of
Jen,
the hour. I see Chance literally everywhere these days with the book coming out soon and all this. So that's
you're
cool.
reading that right now, right?
I am. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm about halfway done, I think. But yeah, I'm having a great time with it.
Ah, nice.
Um,
Yeah.
David also proposed to his wife, and maybe I should do that too. That might be good.
Yay.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's one of the, I mean, we've been dating for like almost 5 years, so like I got to start thinking about stuff at some point, huh? So.
Yay.
Uh,
It's really sweet too because, like, when you do it in a public place, um, people get emotional and everything. Did you freeze? Are
oh
we
man.
frozen?
Oh, not that I know of. I
Oh,
think I'm
okay. It
okay.
looks like it froze on my end a little bit, but I'm
Oh,
not sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. I'm gonna cry like a baby regardless of how I do it. So like, if other people are there crying, it's game over.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a very sentimental person.
Oh,
Yeah.
I cry at everything. It's awful. Well, it's great. I'm glad that I would rather that than the opposite, right? But um,
Yeah. Yeah, but I do recommend traveling when if you get a chance. I have found, I'm nowhere near as well traveled as David, but but at the same time, I have found it so eye-opening. I know we always talk about books opening and expanding our mind and, opening our capacity towards understanding the lives of others, broadening our empathy perhaps, but I feel like travel can do that quite a bit, especially
mm,
going to a place where there's a totally different language, a totally different culture. I feel like that can be just as rewarding. I feel like it complements the reading experience in a lot of ways if
mm.
that's what you read for, you know?
I love that. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that I get the same thing. Even when I just moved from the Midwest to Florida, it was like culture shock, and it
Yeah.
was kind of like that in some ways. So, um, especially South Florida is its own very special place. So,
Where
it's
in Florida? Are you like south around Miami or like
yep,
further south?
yep.
Ah,
I'm very close to Miami, so it's like they call it North Cuba here. So
ah,
it is
yes. We went to Miami a few years ago and there is a crazy nightlife there. That's what I remember.
like
Oh,
businesses don't close. Like
yeah.
it's just it's wild. We spent when was that? Maybe a month or so ago. We spent an evening in close to Miami. It's called Brickell technically, but we had some friends staying there, so we went and visited, and they kind of took us around a little bit because they're big nightlife people, and like I'm not. I go to bed at 9 or 10, right? So they were
Mhm.
showing us around some stuff, and I'm staying up late, whatever. And it was just they took us to this big mall, and it's just packed with people, and it's late at night, and it's like nothing's close. It was wild. I mean, I can believe it, but I also couldn't believe it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 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 it is
um,
quite the nightlife there. I'm also not much of a night owl type of person.
I used to be. It's so funny to think back on. I've had such a progression in that front. Growing up, I was the kid who would sleep until noon or 1 p.m. or whatever, and I was up really late. And then after I graduated high school, I had a few years where I just worked before I went to college. And so I was getting up at 4 in the morning then to go to work.
Mhm,
So I'd go to bed at 8 or whatever. It's still light outside. And then now I'm kind of settled in a more reasonable, usually wake up between 5 and 7 depending on what time of year, whatever.
mhm.
But yeah, it's so funny to think. I'm like I can't even imagine sleeping until 1 p.m. now. It's crazy.
No, No, I went through a phase like that when I was a teen as well, but I I don't feel like that's my natural rhythm. I feel like my natural rhythm wants to go to bed at an earlier time and get up
Mhm.
earlier. I think I do operate best that way. I'm most productive that way. But I have to bring up, since you live in Florida and you did do a video about this not too long ago. We haven't talked about ICFA. Tell me about
Ooh.
your ICFA experience.
Oh, the moment I left, I was like, "I can't wait to go back."
Yes.
It was so fun. It was honestly, it was even cooler than I was hoping. So, like, I had a rough idea of what it was because I had talked to Janny about it. She's the one who told me. She was like, "Hey, you should come to this thing." I was like, "What is that?" Right? So she told me about it, and I was like, "Okay, see some presentations or something, maybe meet some people." But like, I know I get to meet her, and that's awesome. And so we went and like Chance came down to it. Like we shared a hotel room, so we were just that was cool to like meet a booktube friend in real life, and it's like, oh, we can actually be real life friends, right? It's not awkward or anything. Just it was very smooth. And there in the first thing we did, we went and checked out the bookstore that was just
Amazing, right?
unbelievable. I could
Yeah.
not believe it. I left with like a dozen books, um, and spent probably $20. Like it's crazy. Maybe a little more than that, but nonetheless. And actually, one of them were me and Shay and Sam from My Samwise are doing a buddy read of one of them now. The Thomas Covenant books. We're going to start one here in June. So like it's finally one of the ones that I bought. But
Yes.
yeah, so the bookstore was great, and then just like meeting the people and just the casual conversations was just so amazing. Like there was a it was like a whole afternoon and evening that me and Chance were sitting there, and it was like AP Canavan's right here, Stephen Donaldson's right over here, Janny's right here, Jared from Fantasy Thinkers here, Alex from Books with Banks. Like there's just so many brilliant people, and we're all just talking about fantasy books. But it's like it was such an equal um, breakdown of like just gushing about something that we think is cool and fun, and then also like, oh, but what does this mean, and what is like analyzing a little bit and kind of getting into that side of it too, which I was so appreciative of that balance because I did have that slight worry that I was like, oh, am I going to be able to keep up with this? Like, is it just going to be too academic for me? But no, it was perfect. It was really perfect, and I already like it's next March, right? Like I know I'm gonna go, and it was a close drive for me. It worked out great, so no
Yeah.
complaints. Yeah.
Yeah, I went, a couple of years ago, and it was so much fun, but I only went for a morning, so
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
get to, interact as much as you did. I didn't get to go and see actual presentations because it is an actual conference, like, it's an actual academic conference on
hmm
fantasy,
yeah,
which is pretty cool. But I did get to meet AP and Steven Erikson and Philip and Jimmy and Alan, and it
yeah.
was and Stephen Donaldson. That was surreal. I didn't get to meet Janny, but I did go to that bookstore, and that's where I bought To Ride Hell's Chasm, so
Oh,
I
nice.
was excited because I found it for, like, $3 signed, and so, that's
Sweet.
how I got to Ride Hell's Chasm, and that's how I
Yeah,
started out reading Jenny Wirtz's, books,
it's
so
amazing.
that was
Yeah,
neat.
yeah. It's that was we were having so much fun talking to everybody. We wound up not going to any of the presentations because we were just hanging out. But that's okay. Let's see if we can go to more next year or something. But the just meeting people and hanging out and talking and like learning about like I talked to Janny so much about like her process and her just the just all of it. Like I was just trying to soak in the knowledge, and it's I just I struggle to find words to like describe how cool and unique of an experience that it was. And the only downside was that both Steven Erickson and Ian Esselmont were not able to make it this year, and I was really hoping to meet them, but that's okay. Hopefully in the future. But,
Steven Erikson is so kind.
mm,
He's such a writer in the sense that, like, I know when we were sitting around the table and having breakfast together, I was sitting next to him, and I feel kinda bad because I think I was just kinda starstruck because I had just finished Malaz and Book of the Fallen a few months before,
oh yeah,
and I
yeah,
was still just in a state over that series, and I was reading The God Is Not Willing at the time, so I spoke with him a bit about that, but I think I was just, like I was just kinda starstruck.
sure.
And
I probably would be too.
he's so quiet. He
Mm,
just takes in everything, right? He just sits there and you
yeah.
could tell he's just deeply listening to everyone and just studying everyone as a writer. but it's such a kind person. I was really touched because when I was leaving, he came up and he gave me a hug, and
Mm.
I was just, like, so touched with how warm and gentle he was,
Yeah,
just such a kind person, so
yeah, it's amazing.
oh,
I could see
I
that.
wish I
He
weren't
seems
so
to
starstruck, though. I wish I could have
he,
been a little bit more normal, but it was fun.
what are you gonna do? He seems to really come off that way in interviews and stuff, right? Um, I was I was a little starstruck with Janie, I won't lie, but it did help that I've been, like, talking to her on Twitter and stuff before, so I was like, "Okay, like, I know that you're a normal person, you're a real person, you're not just this pedestal on the internet or whatever." Um,
Yeah.
that certainly helped, but,
Mhm.
there's that little bit of just like, I don't wanna come off as dumb or awkward or, but
Ah,
what are you gonna
yeah.
do?
I'm sure you were fine. I'm sure it was all
I don't know.
fine.
I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
so,
No,
but
I had the same exact insecurities. I'm like, "Oh, man, did I just make a fool out of myself? Did I don't know. I don't know. Did I act like a little fangirl? I don't know. I have no
It's
idea
how
how
it
I came
goes.
across."
I
Yeah.
definitely, uh, I definitely came off as a fangirl when I met Chance, that's for sure. That's the one I was the most anxious about. Um,
Nice.
no, I feel like, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to I've been really fortunate that I've had the chance to meet a lot of people that I really look up to, and, every time that that happens, you get less and less awkward, I feel like. So, like, I've worked some of that out, so that definitely helped, but there's always that anxiety, I don't know, because you just
Oh,
wanna
no, I totally agree. Yeah,
yeah,
I totally agree.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's an
I
interesting
wanna say
experience.
that's true for me anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, it's an interesting experience.
yeah.
Um, yes, we need to get Jeremy to read Malazan, that is true. Speaking of Malazan, I loved that video you guys did on the hot takes, that was so fun.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun. I had to stretch myself because I feel like I've already verbalized a lot of Mlaz and hot takes over the years.
Yeah.
So I had to come up with a couple of different ones that I hadn't come up with before.
Mhm.
But I was impressed with everyone's hot take. I did not expect half of or like most of those. I
Yeah.
think David revealed one of them beforehand, but otherwise I had no idea what people were gonna say.
Mhm.
And it was a genuine surprise. So it was fun to hear everybody's hot take, and it was just fun to see everyone's reaction
Yeah.
and whether people agreed or disagreed. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do you have a Malazan hot take, by the way, Jake?
I
Maybe
was trying to think through this. I was like, "Man, do I have anything else to throw in the mix?" Um, I feel like a couple of mine definitely were taken, like, right off the bat when Shay was saying that Krupp has more aura than Karsa, I was like, "My man." I'm a huge Krupp I love Krupp, he's, like, one of my favorites.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
demolished Krupp in my
Yeah.
one of my takes.
That's
Oops.
okay. That's okay. Krupp is honestly probably second only to Animander in, like, my favorite characters. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I wasn't the biggest Animander Rake fan, though, by the end of the series. Like,
That's
I
fair.
didn't I thought he was fine,
Mhm.
but I loved him in Gardens of the Moon, and I thought he was cool in Memories of Ice, but over the course of the series, no spoilers, but, I mean, there's just so many amazing characters in that series that I felt like I mean, he's okay later on. It was
We,
just a matter of so many other amazing characters just taking, center stage after a while.
yeah, yeah, that's it's really hard to pick favorite characters 'cause like you're saying, there's so many. Um,
Yeah.
but Professional Bookworms has this very correct, I think. Krupp is the GOAT. David, don't tease me now. Get me in for part 3. Don't tease me. That'd be fun. I'll have to think maybe I shouldn't reveal my hot takes here then if I might need to save them in the bank. But,
Yeah, I would be so curious to hear your hot take. Be interesting.
hmm, one of them might The God Is Not Willing is arguably it's up there at the very best Malazan books, is probably one of mine. I don't know how hot that is, but I genuinely think that that's a fantastic book.
You know, I think, I don't wanna put words in his mouth, but I wanna say Jimmy said something kinda similar to that to
Mm,
me. Because I felt I really enjoyed The God Is Not Willing. In fact, I wanna try to carve out some time to reread it before the sequel comes out because I read it, when it came out.
sure.
Um, I I didn't it didn't quite reach the height that the other books in the series did for me, but
Mhm.
I still thought it was a good book. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed it.
sure. Yeah, I totally get that. It doesn't have, I don't know. Like it doesn't have quite of the high highs as some of the other books, I guess. I appreciated how tight it was. Um, and I appreciated seeing, again, no spoilers, just some of the, and you guys touched on this in your video too, some of the consequences of actions taken in prior books that kind of, I don't want to say it got swept under the rug, but just, you know, there was more to explore there. So I appreciated exploring that.
Yeah,
And yeah, I don't know. And I'm a huge, I thought that the, the humor, the interactions between the Malazan soldiers was peak from like I have
yes.
never seen him do that better. I was so excited about that.
I thought it was fantastic too. What is the female character's name? I'm gonna kick
Uh,
myself for not remembering her name. The main female.
Stillwater?
Yes, Stillwater. I
Stillwater? Yeah,
loved her. I loved that
amazing.
character.
So fun. I loved
So
it.
funny. I just fantastic character.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there was, like, a female friendship in the book too, and I remember
Mhm.
applauding that because, that's something I would personally love to see more in adult epic fantasy or
Mm,
female friendships,
sure.
in general, or even male-female friendships. I wish I could see more of that in
Yeah.
general,
Yeah.
because we have a lot of male-male friendships, but not a lot of other variety beyond that. So, I
For
it
sure.
was wonderful for me to see that as well. I watched your video on what Malazan means to me, and
Yeah.
I feel like I could relate so much to everything you were saying. It seems like you and I started the series at the same time, like in 2019.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, yeah, we
Wow,
started
yeah.
about the same time, and
Huh.
it was neat to hear how you felt like it helped you grow as a reader, because I feel the same way. I felt
Yeah.
like my reading taste evolved, but my literacy skills maybe improved reading that series. It forces you to dig deeper than your
Yes.
average, fantasy book. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. Yeah, that it's almost like now that I have how long has it been? I think it's been a couple years since I finished the Book of the Fallen. Yeah, I think it was like February or March maybe of 2023 is when I finished it, I believe.
Mhm.
I want to say that's right. So I, a couple years, and I'm just, it's still, just churning in my brain. It hasn't left to any degree, and it's like I almost think of my reading as like pre Malazan and post Malazan. Like it just changed what I look for so much, and like that now I keep finding myself like I want the Malazan, I want the Wars of Light and Shadow, I want the like those really like just something that won't disappear from my brain a couple months after I read it, or something that's going to like force me to, like you said, really dig deep to sometimes just understand the not understand what's happening because like that's usually not hidden, but like the thematic, like looking for themes is something that I never did until like a year ago maybe, and so
Mm.
it's still sort of a new thing, and it's like that really pushed me to get interested in that idea. I wasn't even looking for it while I was reading the series. It's just in hindsight I start to think about those things.
You know
um
what's interesting about that? Because I've been watching I don't know how long you've been watching BookTube for, but I started my channel in 2021, and
mhm,
that was the year that I finished Malazan Book of the Fallen, so I actually finished that journey on my channel,
yeah,
at least books 4 through 10. And before I started my channel, I know the year before I is where I discovered Philip's channel and my friend
mhm,
Alan from Library of Alexandria, and before they came along, I didn't hear many booktubers talk about themes. I don't feel like that
mm,
was ever the focus. In fact, a lot of booktubers back then, they would talk about the Caw pile rating system. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's like where you assess fantasy based on characters and world building and all these different features, but themes never entered the equation. So I never
mm,
heard fantasy booktubers talk about themes until Philip and Alan came along. And Alan always says that he's not a theme-based reader and he's a liar because he talks about themes extremely well on his channel. And but those two really started to talk about thematic aspects in the books that they were reviewing. And that was the first time that it occurred to me to think about a book that way. And then and reading Malazan, that changed me. That completely changed me when I stopped trying to focus on like the plot and
yeah,
just some of the other conventions of fantasy and more focused on the themes. I feel like that totally changed my reading experience. So, yeah,
Yes.
I'm with you on that. There's something about Malazan that lends itself to that, but also it's just interesting to see the evolution on BookTube because now it's ubiquitous. Now, if you look on any channel, people are talking about themes left and right all over
Mhm.
BookTube is what
Yeah.
I've noticed. I mean,
Yeah.
even in young adult literature, people are talking about themes. So I don't
Wow.
know what the different what changed that. I wanna say that it was Philip, Philip and Alan, but I have no idea.
Yeah, that's I mean, I could see it. I'm trying to think back now too, and I'm like, I don't remember, the BookTube circle that I was watching before I started a channel was a lot more narrow than it is now, to be honest. I mean, I like so many people like, Daniel Green and Mike's book reviews were, like, the first 2 that I found, and I was just like I only watched them for a while, and then I found Philip, and I found you, and I found Alan, and I found, that circle, right? And then I found, like, the Bookborn circle and, like, all the and, like, I expanded some, but not a ton, and
Mhm.
then now I'm seeing, so many more people, which is super fun. But it's interesting to think back on, um, you know, I think you're right. Even though my scope was narrower, I had the same experience where people weren't talking about it. And then once I found like you guys, then it's like, oh, okay, they talk about this stuff. That's cool. And then now it's kind of everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, now I so heavily focus on that to
Yeah.
the and it's to the point too where that's usually how I know I wanna pick up a book is the way that I
Mm,
hear the themes being pitched. If
yeah.
that's a question that I want to explore, that's usually how I know it's something that might appeal to me or not. Not whether
Yeah.
it's grim dark or whether it's, this
Yes.
or that. I feel like the genre titles almost mean less to me these days, but if it's exploring something interesting thematically, that's usually what's gonna draw my attention.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think I'm sort of in the middle, right? Um, David mentioned Baker when we were kind of talking about Malaz and stuff, and it's sort of similar to where I want the deep theme stuff now. I'm evolving, and like that's what I want. But I still want give me the fantasy stuff still, right? Like
That's
I need the cool names, I need the dragon, I need the magic, I need the not that every book has to have dragons, but you know what I mean. Just
yes.
give me the cool fantasy trappings around the depth. Like that's still really what I want. I have a hard time. I know you read wider genres and stuff too, right? Or like Tom reads all kinds of genres, and
Yeah.
David does, like a bunch of people do. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, do I want to try that? And sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I want, I don't know what's comfortable to some degree.
I think honestly, I feel this is interesting because I feel like Malazan is the what is a series that made me interested in other genres because
Hmm.
a lot of people are talking about how it lends itself to people who read a lot of literary fiction because it is so theme based. So
Okay.
that's actually and the fact that it does break so many conventions that it
Yeah.
doesn't give you the typical structure of fantasy or use the typical tropes or the typical aspects of fantasy, I was interested in kind of reaching outside the box and trying different
Hmm.
things. So that's actually what got me into reading other genres. Uh,
Interesting.
and
That makes
I
sense.
find I fantasy will always be my favorite genre of all time, but
Hmm.
I find that reading other genres complements that journey so beautifully, so
Mm.
beautifully. I usually I read a literary fiction book and I'm excited to come back to fantasy, but I find that they complement each other. It doesn't one doesn't subtract from the other.
That's
And it
good.
like, for example, if you read books like Baker, for example, I think it helps to read some McCarthy or even like Blood Meridian. If you read Blood Meridian, that not only has connections to Baker, but it also has connections to Abercrombie. So
Mm.
it's interesting when you read other genres just to see the connections and thematic connections too that you like across different genres.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. I can see myself. I'm willing to dip toes in. I have a buddy read planned here for later in the summer that I haven't talked about too much yet that I'm excited for. That's definitely outside my wheelhouse. Um, but yeah, well, they talked about it on a live stream, so I guess I can throw it out there because
Tell me, what
it's
is
been
it?
talked about. Um, Myself and Nikhil from Shelf Esteem and Danny Wirtz are going to read a book called Heaven Tree together. That
I've
is,
heard of that.
it sounds like it's sort of people talk about Pillars of the Earth a lot, how it's like building a cathedral and stuff. She says it's similar. We're building a cathedral, but it's focused on the artist perspective, and so it's much more focused on like the artistic journey and all of the uh, I guess complications that arise when you're sort of doing that in this in a setting like that. And from what I understand, it is not fantasy whatsoever, which makes me a little nervous. But I will give it a shot if it has the Janny stamp of approval. So
Yeah,
I'll
that's
trust her.
cool.
That'll be fun.
David mentioned Lonesome Dove in the comments
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah.
That's one I would highly recommend to you too at some point. I think well, I and that's another one to talk about too when it comes to fantasy because Lonesome
Mhm.
Dove was extremely influential on George R. R. Martin, for example.
Oh okay.
And yeah, it was influential on George R. R. Martin, it was influential on Stephen King. So there are connections between books that are non-fantasy and books that are fantasy,
Sure. Yeah.
and you'd be surprised how enjoyable it can be. I think Lonesome Dove has its dark moments, so those warnings always need to be applied, but it's it's an incredible journey. The
Mm.
character work is phenomenal, the dialogue is impeccable, so I would highly recommend that one.
Okay. Well, okay. We'll see. I feel like I need to work my way up. I feel like I need to work my way up because it's big, right? It's pretty thick book,
It
and it's
reads
also
really fast in some ways,
okay.
though. I mean, not really, really fast, but
Sure.
it's an easy I mean, it's well written. It flows
Yeah.
beautifully.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
maybe someday down the line, think
Yeah,
about
for
that
sure.
one.
I'm a little I'm not like a Western guy. Well, this is
Ah,
hilarious about me because like I grew up in the
mhm,
Midwest, right?
mhm.
And I don't like country music. I don't like Western stuff. I don't like anything that reminds me of that. I'm just like, "Ugh, I don't know." But
Yeah.
I think I can grow out of that and give it a shot if the book is as special as so many people say that it is. So
All of my
yeah.
favorite Westerns, because 'cause I've read a few Westerns, not a lot, but all the Westerns I've read tend to be ones that are not typical Western. So,
Mm,
Lonesome Dove, a lot of people talk about how it de-romanticizes that whole journey out west. So,
okay.
it takes a different take than that. It's not the simple romanticization of a Western,
Yeah.
if you think about it that way.
Okay.
So, I don't know, but it's
Interesting.
so good. It's so good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's on the list. It's on the list. I want to circle back to a couple of these comments here really quick.
Sure.
Um, your channel is great. Definitely talking about you. So, uh,
Oh, well,
congrats
they're
on that.
probably talking about you too.
No,
On your
I
channel.
don't think so.
Yeah.
Jeremy had a question that I'm also curious about. How did Empire Silence go for you?
Mixed. Very
Mixed?
mixed.
Fair. I'll
Yeah.
take mixed. I'll
Yeah.
take
I
mixed.
wasn't totally impressed with it, to be honest with you. I feel like
Okay.
the writing style left a lot to be desired for me. I understand that it improves dramatically with book 2, so I'm
Mhm.
curious to see where it goes. I think there were several interesting ideas, but yeah, it wasn't yeah, I'm kinda giving away my wrap-up thoughts here, but it wasn't my favorite read. It was okay. It was
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, but I didn't have the greatest reading experience of all time. I went back and I watched David and Thomas's discussion about it, and
Mhm.
Thomas talked about how he's not well read in sci-fi, and maybe that's why he struggled, but he really felt like he struggled to feel it. What I gathered, and I'm paraphrasing, is he was explaining that he struggled to feel immersed. I've read a good
Mm.
amount of sci-fi. I've read a good amount of sci I mean, I'm not the most well-read when it comes to sci-fi by any means. There are several people who have way outread me in sci-fi, but I've read a good amount. I've read a good amount, and I'm a Dune fan. I read the first 3 Dune books and really enjoyed those,
Mhm.
but I really struggled to get immersed in this story. I found it really difficult to visualize what his descriptions I found his descriptions difficult to visualize,
Mm.
and it was a little inconsistent. Sometimes I found that I could get into it, sometimes I was able to get into the story or follow along pretty well, but it wasn't the easiest reading experience, and I understand this is the weakest book in the series, so
Sure.
I hope that that will change as I continue, but
Yeah. I think most people have that experience that it improves a lot for book 2. I know what you mean, right? I remember reading book 1 and I was in some ways was just completely sucked in. I was like, "Okay, I love this already."
ah,
And
nice.
especially like the end. The first 2/3 or so, I was kind of well, I really like the beginning. The middle, like everybody says, the middle is very mixed with people.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mixed to negative probably. And then most people feel better about the ending, right? But the
Yes.
I think that's that makes sense that you say sort of having a hard time sort of picturing some of what's happening. I think Christopher himself has talked about like he doesn't picture stuff in his head like when he reads at
Oh,
all, right?
interesting.
So I wonder, being like his first book, and I mean he started writing it when he was like 17 or something,
Mm,
and
mhm.
so I wonder how much of that was just him working out the kinks of how to describe things to get other people to be able to picture it because he can't really do it.
That is
Um,
fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah.
which it blows my mind. I was like, "What do you mean you don't picture anything when you read? That's crazy." But it seems like a common thing.
It is. Well, I did a video about this topic a few years like, I think it was my 1st or 2nd year on BookTube, and
Okay.
I was talking about it with David recently, actually, because I
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite videos I've ever done on BookTube, not necessarily because I think I was the best ever in my delivery, but I did a video called, "Do you visualize what you read?" And the reason I love that video so much is I do think I made some solid points in that video. At the same time, though, the reason I love it so much is because of the comment section. The comment section blew my mind because
Mm,
I talked about how when I fell in love with reading, I fell in love with reading when I was around 9, 10, 11 years old, mostly middle school. That was when I was really hooked into reading. And at that time, one of the things I loved about books and why I found them so magical is because I could read a book and I was in another world.
yeah.
And I'd have to reorient myself whenever I'd stop reading. I'd have to blink and realize, "Oh, I'm Johanna. I am a person in this room. This object I'm holding is a book." Because I
Uh-huh.
would be so in the visual experience of the story I was reading. I'd be so into that. And so I that's how I fell in love with reading, but all these years later, I have found that that experience isn't always consistent for me. I find that there are multiple ways to engage with story that go beyond just being able to visualize what you read. Like, you could
Mhm.
be totally invested in the emotions of the story or invested in the plot or themes that don't necessarily require those visualization skills. But, it was interesting to propose that question to the audience and then see the comment section because there were so many people in the comment section because it was widely viewed for my channel at the time. There were several people in the comment section who wrote that they couldn't believe that there are people out there who don't visualize what they read. Because I talked about that too. I talked about how I've come across a number of friends here on BookTube who say they don't visualize what they read.
Mhm.
And then there were also a ton of comments from people who said, "I didn't realize that people visualize what they read. Like, I didn't realize that was a thing." And then and added to that, at the time, I was on Twitter I no longer am on Twitter, but at the time I was on Twitter, and Michael R. Fletcher, who's the author of Obsidian Path, he
Mhm.
retweeted my video and he tagged Mark Lawrence and he said, "I visualize what I read so much that I have to be careful when I'm driving and listening to a Mark Lawrence audiobook because I'm basically in a movie when I'm driving." And then Mark Lawrence tweeted back, he said, "That's funny because I don't visualize what I write." And so it started this whole interesting conversation, and
Yeah.
it's blown my mind about how many of us visualize what we read versus don't visualize, but also authors themselves. How much does visualization affect the writing process, and how
Mhm.
much does that affect the reading process? Because I know Janie has said several times that if people have what's it's called aphantasia, if people can't visualize what they read, she has said several times that if people have aphantasia, they're going to struggle with her books, which I don't think
Mm.
is totally true, by the way, because I know AP is not a critical dragon has
Mhm.
said that he's not a visual reader, like he doesn't visualize things, and he loves her books. So
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any correlation between somebody's reading taste or preference and the visual descriptions, but it's something I think about often, but it makes sense when you said that Rakio himself doesn't visualize because I that was a huge stumbling block for me in book
Mm.
1.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. And even in the comments, it seems like a couple people can't even imagine people not visualizing. Movie in the head is what I get for sure.
Yes.
Um, David somewhere in the middle, like getting flashes like a photo album. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I have that some. It depends on the book. Like I've been reading
Mm.
some more One Piece, because spoiler alert, I DNF the Devils. Sorry, everybody. But I
Those
so I
are hot
needed
takes today.
I needed a
Same.
happy place. Yeah, hot takes for real. I needed my my happy safe space. So back to One Piece, and that's kind of how I get. Maybe it's just because it's manga, but like, um, there's something about the One Piece artwork that I I often, especially in like a fight scene, struggle to understand exactly what's happening in the panel.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's kind of like bits and pieces like that. But what are you gonna do?
Yes. I talked about that in my video too, about how when it comes to being a visual reader, something I do struggle with are combat scenes, especially if it's
Yeah.
just one-to-one combat or somebody hitting a sword another person with the sword. Sometimes that can I could struggle with that, but I
Hmm.
do love if it's a battle scene, I love it when there are atmospheric elements. Like, I feel like Erickson does such an incredible job with that, like incorporating the
Yeah.
sky and the landscape,
Yes. Yes.
magic. Then I can really get into it, but otherwise it can be difficult.
Yeah. I relate to that a lot. As Erickson's actually a great example. Like the one of the big battles in the God is Not Willing. There's very strong element of like not just hand to hand combat stuff happening, and I was my brain was like going haywire picturing this thing. It was beautiful, but then like when we have that hand to hand combat stuff, I haven't been able to put my finger on it. Sometimes I feel like I'm right there. Maybe it's the way it's described on the page. Other times there's just like I know a fight happened, and what I'm imagining might not actually be literally what was described on the page, but it amounts to the same thing. If that makes sense, like
Mhm.
I don't know, it's weird. It's weird. It's funny how our brain can kind of connect the dots sometimes like that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, I agree, and to me, more description is not necessarily better. Sometimes I
Yeah.
prefer if the author just gives a little bit of description and lets my mind fill in the gaps rather
Yes.
than detailed description about everything. I don't need that much.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Really quick, I do want to say goodbye to our friend David.
Aw,
Thank you for hanging
bye.
out.
Thanks,
Um,
David.
Remind me, have you read The Wheel of Time?
I have not, no.
The way that they describe sword fighting in The Wheel of Time is very interesting for things like that. Um, I don't know how much you've heard about it. It's not a spoiler, but it's basically like
Mm-mm. Go ahead.
he'll like describe a sword movement or something with like just a name, um, like boar rushing down the hill or like something like that. Then he'll just say that, and so then your brain would connect that to what's actually happening in the moment, and you
Hmm,
visualize like what would that name describe. And they're usually names like that. That's like, oh, I can kind of tell what that alludes to, right?
yeah.
Um, but it was so interesting. It was the only thing I've ever read that has done that. But
Huh,
yeah, interesting.
that is interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
heron wading through the thrushes or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's usually not quite that abstract, but yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you because you finished War Host of Vastmark recently,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'm 7 books into Words of Light and Shadow, haven't
yes.
gone past that yet, but War Host of Vastmark remains my favorite. It's
Mm,
still my favorite in the
it was
whole
so
series so
good.
far.
It was
Yeah.
so good. Um, you guys separated him, right? You like took a break between ships and Warhost.
We did, yeah, we took a
Yeah,
break. I know that you recommend not doing that. I didn't feel like I had too much of a problem taking a
yeah,
break between those 2. I mean, we didn't take a long, long break,
sure.
War Host, I remember it was beautiful that I finished that on my birthday a year or 2
Mm.
ago, and
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, it was really special though because there's something about that book that I absolutely adored. I just
Yeah,
loved it. I loved it so much.
yeah, that's amazing. Do you ever like purposely try to do stuff like that for your birthday? Like sometimes I'll try to time things out so that my birthday I'm either like finishing something amazing or starting something that I know I'm gonna love or something like that.
I always intend to do that, and then it usually doesn't work out, but I was really happy that it did that year, that I happened to finish that book on the morning of my birthday, like, then it can feel more momentous and
Yeah.
give you a certain type of memory, but
Hmm.
yeah, it doesn't always work out that way. I can't remember what I was reading last year on my birthday at all, but I do
I
remember
remember.
that experience being just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
I
is
don't
your
remember.
favorite thing about Wars of Light and Shadow so far?
Ooh, that's tough. There's so many amazing things. Um, how do I verbalize this? The feeling I get in my body when I'm reading these books is unlike like I've never gotten that feeling from a story before, and I'm not sure how to describe it. It's like a so difficult to to put into words. Is there's like a there are some bad things that happen in the story, right? It's very dark at times, but I always just have such a joy when I'm reading it. It's so fun to just like the way it's written, right? The prose itself is so fun to read, even outside of what's happening in the story. The character, I'm connecting to the characters on like a really deep level, which is really cool. Like just to get that. What am I trying to say? There's like this. It almost feels like an out of body experience at times. That I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's weird. It's like I forget that I'm reading. I'm just so in. I'm so invested and I'm so connected to what's happening. And it's that same thing you described earlier when I finish a chapter and I'm just like, whoa, like, okay, you reacclimate to the real world. And I feel like it's challenging me in very similar ways to what Malazan did. Maybe not, well, maybe in different ways. It doesn't have the same confusion or complexity in some sense, but I think it's challenging me a lot in like, in a way, like how vulnerable can I be with this reading experience? Like how much am I going to let these characters get into my psyche, right? And like how much can I actually let myself feel what Erathon's feeling right now, or things like that, which is really interesting for me. That's one of my favorite things about reading is like experiencing those emotions and feelings from other characters. And so that's been great. And just like the awe, like there's a certain chapter in Ships of Mirror that just my brain exploded when we got all this information and all this, we get a little bit more history and stuff like that, that I was just
I think I know
bewildered.
exactly what you're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah. I think it was chapter 9, I want to say.
Yeah.
That wow. So it's like this sense of wonder and fun and vulnerability, which feels like a weird word to say, but I can't think of anything else to describe that feeling better. That I have it. It also is to be completely honest, special to me because I've become friends with Janny during this whole process. So it's like it feels I get to see what she's created, and that's just cool. And I don't know. It's I'm struggling to put it into words, but it's a very special and unique just feeling while I'm going through it. I think that's my favorite thing.
Yeah, well, you said that beautifully, so
Well,
thank
thanks. I
you.
feel like I stumbled around it a lot, but thank you.
No, no, no. I think that you spoke beautifully about how like, I love the word vulnerable, how that came up for you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
emotional and the out-of-body experience type of transcendent experience that you were having with the
Mhm.
text and the
Yeah.
prose. That's lovely. That's lovely.
It's so fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about it?
My favorite thing about it I have a few things that I really love about Words of Light and Shadow. I do have my nitpicks. I
Sure.
have not been afraid to voice those. I feel like I'm the only
That's good.
one in BookTube who has been able to, like who's been voicing some nitpicks,
That's good though.
but I am more positive than anything about it for sure, and my favorite thing gosh, it's hard. There are a few things, like I said. One of the things is the way that she writes setting, specifically in Borhos to Vastmark. I'll see if I can find it later and maybe send it to you,
Yeah.
but it's this and you'll probably know what I'm talking about, but it's this forest scene that is one of the most beautiful forest descriptions I've ever read in
Mm.
fantasy. It's maybe one of the most beautiful setting descriptions I've ever read in fantasy, but it's the way that Wirtz breathes life into every setting, and I've noticed she does things like she'll talk about this gust of air that goes through the room. She uses air a lot, I've noticed, like little
Uh-huh.
gusts of wind or air or breeze or something moves in the scene, and it makes you feel that atmosphere, it makes you feel like you're there in that setting.
Yeah.
So she is so good at breathing life into every setting, whether it's like a Lara's cabin, which I love,
Uh-huh.
or it's a forest setting, or it's some feature in the landscape, like she or a castle setting, going from one room to the next. I love it when authors do that, when they don't just give you like the room, you're in a throne room or something, but they give you almost like the passage from one room into the next. So you
Yeah.
feel the walls, the scale around you. So I guess I do. I get a very like feel like what's the word? Kinesthetic feeling from
Yeah,
reading
yeah.
the setting descriptions. So I think her nature but the nature ones, the nature setting descriptions are second to none. I think they're probably the best I've ever read in fantasy,
Mm,
to be fair. Um, Possibly Tolkien level or the same or better, I don't know, but it's really high up there for me. The
mm,
other thing that I really love in the in the series are the female characters, and I've
mm,
talked about this a lot. I know everybody loves Erathon and talks about that, but for me, I think the my favorite scenes in the series so far, Traitor's Not the Last Book was an exception to this, but I think so far, at least for the first several books, my favorite scenes are always when there's a female and male character on the page.
mm,
And the other thing I've noticed with that is that whenever she writes, sometimes she'll focus just on male characters for a while, but then when a female character comes on the page, I actually notice a tonal shift. There's just a
mm.
difference in language that it feels, for lack of a better word, more feminine, and I feel it. And so it's almost like I feel the presence of the female character,
Yeah,
and it's such a neat contrast. And when they're on the page together, there's just this incredible dynamic that's happening, whether it's platonic or romantic. But
sure.
that's the other thing. I also don't think any other fantasy writer that I've come across, so far, I'm not the most well read. There's plenty of fantasy I haven't read, but I don't know of any other fantasy writer I've read of so far that I could think of that writes romance better than Jenny Words. I
Mm,
think her romantic scenes are stunning and
yes.
it's not superficial. It feels like it has depth to it. It feels like she understands a deep, intimate connection
Mhm,
between a man and a woman, the potential of that, rather than they
yeah.
just are superficially attracted to each other. It feels like it always goes so much deeper than that, and it's
Mhm,
conveyed so beautifully through the prose. I also think, prose-wise, her diction is impeccable, like, it's always she always finds the perfect word, even if there's a word I have to look up
mhm.
to understand what it is because I'm not familiar with it. It always turns out to be the perfect word, like, there could be
Yep.
no better word than that word she chose to describe that one little thing.
Mhm.
So
It's
yeah,
amazing.
those are the things that I gravitate towards. Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. I wanna, when I pick Fugitive Prince is the next one. When I pick that up, I wanna try to pay closer attention to see if I can notice that slight tonal shift with female character POVs versus not. That'll be really interesting. Um, but I'm similar. I love, any of the scenes with female characters being very, whether it's the POV or not, even if just if they're there, it's so, I don't know how to describe this. I'm struggling with words. Um, it 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 just feels different, right? When they're on the page. I can't pinpoint. If she was here, she would know the exact perfect word to describe it, right? But it's yeah, it's I love it. I think I'm a big fan of romance in books, right? I think it's great, and
Yeah.
I can definitely, at times I'm just like, okay, come on, like this is lame, or other times I'm like, I just read Will of the Many, and I thought the romance in there was awesome. I thought it was very organic how it came about. Like I was like, okay, this is cool, and then like with these, it's just like there, like if two characters are like romantically attracted, it's like there's no other choice. Like of course they are, right? It's just so perfectly, you know, um, yeah, amazing. The other one that sticks out to me is how she writes magic happening.
Mhm.
Like that is just gorgeous. There's been a couple. There was a scene. There's been like one magic scene in each book really that has really stuck out to me. That it's just like it's almost like I find myself like doing that while I'm reading. I'm just like, what is going? Like, how did you come up with this way to say this thing? Or like,
Yes.
yeah, I don't know. It's because the magic is softer, right? It's not a Sanderson magic, right? It's very um, there are clearly some rules and restrictions, but it's much more, I don't know, ethereal. But the way that she writes it conveys that awe and wonder and like uh, it feels like natural to the world also and really authentic to the world itself. But then it's not just hand wavy and whatever, like magic happened, right? It's
Yes.
still described very clearly also somehow.
Yes.
So
Well, I agree with you, and at the same time, I feel like the magic is interesting in Wars of Light and Shadow because like, you have music magic, and I'm not gonna
Mhm.
give anything away, I won't spoil anything, I promise. Big spoilers here. But you have music magic, but and if you understanding the physics of acoustics, music is
Mhm.
vibration. And
Mhm.
what is light? Light is vibration.
Yeah.
And in her world, all these things are interconnected. Emotion is vibration. So you
Mhm.
have emotion is vibration, music is vibration, light and color are vibration. And so the magic is this metaphysical interconnection of all of those things. And I think that that's really intriguing. So I
Yeah.
do think there's actually a physics to the magic
Yeah.
of what's going on. Now,
Oh, there
whether I fully understand it, like what does the 3rd lane mean versus the
Yeah.
10th, I don't know, which is I don't care. I don't need to know that stuff.
Uh-huh.
But I think there's congruency between the connection between magic, between music, light and shadow, color, and, emotional vibration. Like, I think
Yeah.
all those things are interconnected and also just the different and with those different magical creatures existing or
Mhm.
being more quote unquote "resonant" with different planes of that or different
Yeah.
levels of that vibration. That's what I'm gathering so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems that way. I can't was it I think Shay's still here.
Oh,
If
he
you
is.
are, let me know if this is who I was talking to somebody about this, I think it was him, that, I'm settling into, like, that's my favorite type of magic that I still love Sanderson, right? It's popular to hate on him these days. I still love his books, okay? So I love that stuff. That I now have a working theory, he's been a sci-fi author all along, but masquerading
Yeah.
as a fantasy author. That, so I love that stuff. I
Yeah.
also love the very soft whatever, right? But I think my favorite is this middle ground that we get with Malazan or with this, where there clearly are some rules and restrictions happening, and like some stuff gets explained, but it doesn't lose that just like whoa, this is magic feeling,
Yeah.
right? I love that. That's I'm settling in. That's my favorite type of stuff in here.
I mean, I burned out on Sanderson because of the magic stuff
Sure.
largely. I mean, there were other things that I felt like I needed a Sanderson diet over, but I have read a series, I think, like, as much as I love this series, I'll bring up the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden. Have you heard of that series?
I don't think so.
It's, oh gosh, what is it? I can't remember if it's the first book. My shelf somewhere. Anyway, but yeah, it's Catherine Arden's The Winter Night trilogy. It's based on Russian folklore, and it's a wonderful, whimsical Russian medieval, fantasy trilogy, and I enjoyed reading it quite a bit, but that
Mhm.
was my one complaint with it, is I felt like even though it did have some cool magical Russian folklore magic in it, I felt like the magic was just a little too soft for me, where
Mm.
I think, some kind of statement was made in one of the books that if you just wish for it enough, it'll come true, like something along those lines,
Okay.
if you believe enough, it'll happen kinda thing. I
Mhm.
thought that's just too I realized there can be too soft for me.
Sure, sure.
And I think that was too soft for me. But, otherwise, I do like magic to have consequences, to have certain limitations, and
Mhm.
to represent something in the story, to have some sort of thematic aspect. I think David is trying to allude to that in his wonderful video about magic.
Yeah,
I
I
think that
love
was
that
his
video.
idea. Yeah, I love that, and actually, I would be curious when and if David reads Words of Light and Shadow, what he thinks about the magic. Because, like I said, I feel like the magic is integral in every aspect of story in Words of Light and Shadow, which I think is really cool, and like I said, it's operating on the emotions of the characters, with the music, with the spiritual creatures, with light and shadow itself, with color, with so many different things. So yeah, it's an
Yeah.
interesting exploration. It's interesting to like try to understand that. With
Mhm.
We were talking about that with Malazan, and I don't know that I've quite given Malazan magic that much in-depth thought before,
Mm.
but I agree with you. I mean, it's fun to have that sense of wonder, and I know that that's
Yeah.
what Erikson was deliberately going for with it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's the sense of wonder, but without the just anything can happen at any time, right? Like, there's
Right.
still that kinda takes some of the stakes away, I find.
That's
Um,
what it is. Yes,
yeah,
you said it perfectly. Take some
yeah.
of the stakes away. Yeah, yeah.
You, you also are not the hugest fan of big fight scenes, right? Um,
Yeah, it depends. It
okay.
depends. I say that sometimes. I always catch myself saying that, like, "I'm just not a big battle scene kind of reader," and that can be very true for a lot of things. There have been exceptions, though. I have
Mhm.
enjoyed, for example, Eriksson's battle scenes. Like I said, I find them very atmospheric. I love the battle scenes in Lord of the Rings for the same reason.
Mm,
I just find them so atmospheric. And I also love the battle scenes in The Warlord Chronicle by Bernard Cornwell.
that's another
Those
one I gotta
battle
do.
scenes, they're so good. They're so good. I think are you part of that? I know Shay and I wanna say Shay, I don't know if I'm calling you out, Shay, sorry. I've heard that there are some people, I think it was Shay, who's reading A Drowned Kingdom.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm doing that too. I'm so
okay, you
excited.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I know talking to PL, who's just lovely, one of the most lovely people ever, I know he's also a huge Warlord fan. Like, he
Mm,
and I have just gushed on and on about Bernard Cornwell,
okay.
and that's a little more historical fiction. It's on that line.
Yeah.
I still included it in my top 10 fantasy series because I think it's just it hints at fantasy enough, but it is a little bit of a stretch to call it fantasy. But I still think it's just he's incredible at battle scenes because I think battle
Mm,
scenes have to be more than just we're in war and there's this side fighting that side, but there's a whole ebb and flow to a battle scene. There's a whole like a crescendo and decrescendo, if you will. And I think authors who can really capture that and the emotional ramifications of it, I think that can be absolutely incredible.
yeah. I love that. I totally agree. At a full circle moment, if you continue through Sun Eater, I think he does a very good job with that.
Oh,
Um,
good.
that's
Okay.
a common, depending on the person, compliment or complaint about the series is he doesn't do the big spaceship battles. He does on the ground the foot soldiers,
I see.
which keeps it very character focused, and you get that sense that you're sort of describing, which I love because spaceship battles are awesome, right? But like I can get that from what I got that from Red Rising or Star Wars or whatever, right? So like
Yeah.
the sticking with Hadrian is really fun in those moments.
Yeah,
But
that's the one drawback to Baker, I think a lot of people
mm,
have. Even though I think his battle scenes are cool in the sense that they are very atmospheric, but they're
uh-huh.
very bird's eye view. It's very much like
Mm,
almost like you're getting this overview, and I think even the narration slightly shifts to almost more omniscient, and so it doesn't feel
interesting.
like you're in the character's perspective, like feeling it doesn't really feel to me like I'm boots on the ground, but more
Mhm.
like looking at it from a distance as an overview. Is the one slight drawback to Baker. I still think that the
Sure.
battle scene in the very first Baker book, though, is amazing, and I actually think you would like I am curious if you'd like Baker. I have a feeling you might.
I think I would. I definitely wanna check it out. I'm on my quest for finding something that's truly super dark, so I think
Ooh,
that'll meet the bill, I think. Somebody mentioned Anna Smith Spark earlier too. I can't remember what we were talking about, but that she's another one that I think I hear very grimdarky things about, so
that's what I hear
see.
too. I have yet to read her, but I've heard that her prose is beautiful, so
Yeah,
I would like to try that out sometime.
yeah, definitely. We should buddy read an Anna Smith Spark book sometime.
Sure, let's do
That'll be
it.
fun. That'd
Yeah,
be
that
fun.
sounds fun.
Um, okay, we should circle back to that. I'm serious. We should definitely do
Yeah,
that. I don't know how
yeah,
long her books are, but I don't think they're crazy long, so it might not be too difficult to squeeze it in there somewhere.
yeah.
Um,
Oh,
here's
I thought it's oh, go ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna say here's maybe a hot take for the non huge battle scene person. I haven't read Carcanus yet, but do you have a favorite like Malazan battle? Because he's got some really
Oh,
cool ones.
oh, well, I think The Crippled God has one of the most incredible battle scenes ever. The one at the
Yeah,
end of Dust of Dreams stays with me too.
yeah, that's underrated.
It is,
Underrated.
isn't it? It's underrated, I
Yeah.
agree. But there are so many. I did a wonderful video, it's older now, on my channel called Leadership and Battle and Leadership in Malazan Book of the Fallen. I had only read up to
Ooh.
book 7 at the time, I think. But yeah, I did that collab with my friend Pete from Ponderings with Pete,
Mhm.
Philip Chase, and Alan from the Library of Alexandria. And so we talked about the battle scenes, like in Memories of Ice. I can't say names, can I? Because I feel like I'm gonna just totally spoil things here, but there are a lot. And, so we went through these battle scenes, and it's one of the funniest videos, I think, on my channel. Steven Erickson posted it on his Facebook page, and he wrote, I have no words. We left him speechless because he was laughing so hard because it's
Oh,
just
wow.
so funny.
I gotta
But
watch
yeah,
it.
I love you gotta check it out. It's so
Okay, hold
hilarious.
on.
But yeah, it's,
I'm gonna pull it.
battle scenes in Aladdin are amazing.
I'm
So
gonna have
yeah, I
very
think I'm a liar, Jake, in saying that I don't like battle scenes. I think I might be a liar. But I do sometimes disconnect. It depends on the writing. It really
mhm.
does.
It does depend on the writing for okay, I found it. There we go. It's queued up.
Oh,
3
yay,
years ago.
Slay is pitching Baker there in the
He
comment
is, I
section, by
see
the way.
this. We didn't even talk.
Yes.
Slay is, uh Slay is my guy for whenever we need something just, like, dark and heavy, right? We talk about music all the time or, stuff like this, so,
Ah,
that's always fun. He
yeah.
knows me in that
Well,
sense.
he's so knowledgeable about Baker too.
Yeah.
Baker Baker's hard sometimes for me. Like, sometimes it was hard to follow everything
Mm,
and understand everything that in the story,
yeah.
but still, I think Baker's prose, it might be my favorite. It might be my favorite in
Wow.
fantasy. Yeah,
Wow!
it
That's
might.
high praise.
It might. I
Wow.
yeah, it might. I need to think about it more, but it's up
Sure.
there. Yeah, yeah.
Have you read everything that he's
Yes,
done?
everything,
Okay,
in the
yeah.
Second Apocalypse, yes. Mhm.
Yes, okay.
So that's the
Um,
first 3 books, the Prince of Nothing trilogy. I have a
mhm,
spoiler-free review for that and a spoiler-free review for book 1, and then I read the tetralogy that follows that,
mhm,
Aspect Emperor, and my favorite book in all of Second Apocalypse, which might be unpopular, I don't know, but Philip and I actually share the same favorite, which is cool 'cause
mm,
it's a White Luck Warrior, which is the 2nd book in the Aspect Emperor tetralogy.
okay.
Um, I am more positive about Baker than Philip is.
Okay.
I think he's been scaring people off of it, but I still think it's a masterpiece in so many ways. Yeah, that book,
Yeah.
White Luck Warrior, to me, it's one of the best it's for me, one of the best fantasy books I've ever read in my life.
Wow,
Truly,
that's amazing.
truly.
Oh, I'm so excited. I've generally tried to not watch too many videos about it. Like, if somebody talks
I
about it
totally
in,
understand. Yeah.
like the weeks that were, Philip would mention it every now and then or something. But I really am finding I love going into books as blind as possible. Like, if I know that it's fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, like, I wanna know that anyway. Like, as I said earlier, I like my fantasy stuff. But, like the Thomas Covenant books that we're gonna do one here in June, I'm like, I don't know what that's about at all.
Eesh.
I know Donaldson's a legend, and I know
Mhm.
the main character has leprosy. That's literally it. So we're just gonna go and see what the journey's like.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying that a lot. So, I'm trying to not spoil, but, have too much expectations. I find expectations can shape my reading experience quite a bit, positive or negative, and so I'm trying to be wary of that. I think some of that I liked The Will of the Many quite a bit, but it's like everyone was saying it was one of the best books of all not everybody was saying that, but some people were quite loudly saying one of the best books of all time and stuff like that. I'm like, "Wow, okay." And it didn't quite reach that high for me because it's just such a high bar, you know? Or
Eesh.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I hope I don't overhype Baker for you then.
No, it's okay. I think you've been very balanced, right? Because,
Uh,
like, just having one book that's one of your favorites, saying it's one of your favorites that you've ever read, I think is very different than this is one of the best quality fantasy books ever written.
I
You
try
know?
to avoid statements like that. I
Yeah.
try very hard to personalize it based on what I've read, knowing I haven't read everything. And, yeah, I think we have to be careful about that. This
Mhm.
is an interesting topic. I thought about even making a video at some point about this, but I'll just go ahead and share here, like, I I just don't feel comfortable widely recommending my favorite books. Like, even though
Mm.
I have high praise for Baker, and I do think just knowing you and your taste and what you're interested in gravitating towards, that
Uh-huh.
you might click with Baker, what Baker has to offer, but
Yeah.
I don't widely recommend Baker. I don't because the trigger warnings are so high for that series,
Mhm.
and not everybody enjoys reading a fantasy series where it's really difficult to root for certain characters or to root
Mhm.
for anybody for that matter. And it is complex in some ways, like I said, and, I feel the same way about Malazan. I love Malazan, but I don't widely recommend it because especially for female readers, because 'cause I've had a lot of
Sure.
female reading friends who've struggled with the essay in that series,
Sure.
and especially knowing what's to come in book 9, and especially how different the reading experience is towards the end of the series that is very hit or miss for certain people. It was a huge
Mm.
hit for me, but it's a huge miss for many others I know. I just don't feel comfortable widely recommending series and saying, "This is the best ever," or "the most underrated," or this and that. I try to refrain from that, but of course, we are fantasy readers and we are enthusiastic and passionate about what we love.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that should be quelled by any means, but it is something I consider because I know things can get easily overhyped and that can ruin somebody's experience if they have a certain expectation in mind for sure.
Absolutely. I love that. I really admire that. I think it's a mark of like, critical thinking, I think, in a lot of ways, right? That, like, just because you think something's amazing doesn't mean somebody else will.
Yeah.
Maybe you look for different things or whatever. So I love that, and I try to think of it in a similar way of, like, if somebody like, I just the other day, this was Thursday evening, me and a friend were hanging out, and there was a Barnes& and Noble really close. We're like, "Hey, let's just go walk around Barnes& and Noble a little bit." And we wound up this complete stranger just overheard us and just joined the conversation. He was super cool, super nice, and we were just talking about books and um, getting he was like, "What would you recommend something to me?" And I was just like, "What do you like?" Right? Like you got to kind of ask some questions, I think, before you can recommend something.
Mhm.
Um, but I want to circle back to something that you said there about Malazan and how not everybody clicks with it. With it obviously is true. And I've been thinking about this a lot since I watched that video that you guys did on the Malazan hot takes. I I don't personally remember the tone feeling so different in the back half compared to the early books, and it seemed like some of you guys in that video felt that it was pretty different. Some feel like maybe it wasn't quite as different. Whatever. Can you describe to me sort of what you mean? I just am curious if I
Oh,
missed
yeah,
something.
sure. And I don't recall feeling that different about the last few books either, but
Okay.
I know that it is a lot of people feel like it's heavier, denser philosophy, I guess, is
Hmm.
presented in those
Okay.
final books, which I can kind of understand.
Yeah.
I can
Okay.
kind of understand that. If you look at is it book 8, Toll the Hounds?
Yeah.
That one goes into a lot of depth about a lot of people refer to that as the most thematic in the series,
Mm.
and it does go into some pretty in-depth discussions, I would say, about a number of things, including redemption versus absolution, so a lot of, like, religious philosophical themes. It also goes into, obviously, aspects of grief,
Mhm.
and I would say coming towards a crossroads at the end of one's life, that's something that stood out to me in that book as well. And then with, Dust of Dreams, I think that the one of the reasons that people struggle with that book, 'cause a lot of people do, a lot of people struggle with Dust of Dreams,
Yeah.
is 1, it has an extremely difficult chapter with many
Yeah.
warnings abound, but it also presents a whole bunch of characters that you haven't seen. Well, every book does that. Every book constantly introduces new characters, but I feel like it gives a scrutinizing look at different kinds of nomadic cultures and how,
Mhm.
some of the, unhealthy aspects of culture, I would say, has some really interesting cultural explorations, but I don't think they're simple
Yeah.
cultural explorations. I think there's a lot of digging that you have to do, or digging required on the part of the reader, and so I don't know. I don't know if those are what others would say about those last books, but I can
Sure.
tell you that just from my friends who I've talked to, I'll give you an example. I hosted a spoiler-free Malazan discussion after I finished the series. I hosted that with channels such as Philip Chase, Jimmy from the Fantasy Network, Alan from the Library of Alexandria, and Brittany from Books with Brittany. And both Brittany and Alan, they gravitate towards different things in books, by the way, but those 2 both said that they just did not connect nearly with books, at the back half of the series as much as they did with the front half.
Mm.
That
Mhm.
it didn't quite appeal to them as much, that it was a very different reading experience. And I know
It's
Alan
interesting.
always claims he hates navel gazing or whatever, but but that's just Alan. But yeah, so I guess that's what got me thinking. That's what got me
Sure.
thinking along those tracks of like, okay, those last few books are not super popular with everyone, and
Yeah.
I've noticed that across the board. I happen to connect to the whole series, but yeah, I don't think that that's always the case for people.
Sure. That's fair. Yeah, that's totally reasonable. I guess when I heard tonal shift, I was expecting, like, is just so much darker, or it's like a very tangible difference. But I see maybe it's like when I was reading it, it felt like sort of a pretty natural progression of everything, good and bad.
Mhm.
Um, that yeah, but I see what you're saying for sure. It definitely gets more complex, and in like the thematic stuff and the I think a lot of that, frankly, was probably lost on me on that first read through. Like I got some
Wow.
of it, but I'm really excited for a eventual reread to see how much more I can
Ah,
catch.
same here. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to reread that series, but it's crazy to me because when you were talking about remembering certain things still to this day, like that's why you love Malazan so much is because it made you hungry for a series that will stick in your mind the
Yeah.
way that that series did. Because just the other day, I was talking about a memory I had of House of Chains. I haven't read House of Chains in, I guess, 4 years now, and
Yeah.
I went back and I was able to find the exact I opened the book and I just found it right there. I was like,
Wow.
"That's the exact spot. I think it's in this section," and I found it. I found the exact scene, and it's not even a scene everyone talks about, but it was, like, one specific scene, a quieter scene in the book,
Mm,
and it stuck with me so much, and I was able to find it. I'm like, "I can't do that with any other fantasy series. I can't even do
mm.
that with Farseer trilogy," and I read that not too long ago. I mean, I read
Yeah.
that after Malazan.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's just wild to me how well it's stuck in my stuck in my brain in some ways.
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
remember everything, and I certainly missed a lot of things too. I'm not saying I caught everything in that series, so the reread will be interesting for me as well. But
Mhm.
I mean, it's there's something really special about being able to connect that deeply to a series and still be thinking about it to this level so many years later.
Yeah, 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 it's amazing. It's I see people doing a reread now, and I get so much FOMO and jealousy. I'm like, "I
Me
wanna
too.
jump in," but I've already locked my the best and worst thing
Same.
of BookTube is you're locked in these buddy reads, and,
Same.
you know, but it'll happen. I think my right now my plan is, uh, as I am getting the Broken Binding ones, so, like, once we have the full set of 10, I'll do my reread through the 10, and I
Maybe
think
I'll
that'll
join
be
you because I'm
ooh.
collecting those as well.
That
Yeah.
well, that sounds like perfect timing.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. I would love that.
Cool.
Um, so it sounds like it's probably another couple years or something like that at
Probably.
least till we get those, but that's okay. More time to read some others. It gives me a chance to finish Janny's books and some of these other big denser series, and yeah, Baker's stuff. We got to do that in the meantime.
Yeah.
Um, Seth Plato is saying you're perfect for Berserk. Do you have
Ah,
any interest in Berserk? I'm not
I
sure how you would feel
do.
about this. Okay.
I do have interest in Berserk. I
Okay.
understand it goes very, very dark,
It does.
but I don't know and I don't know much about it except that people seem to love it. So
Hmm.
and I'm not attracted to it because it's dark. Please don't get me wrong.
Sure.
That's not necessarily what attracts me to something, which is a whole other conversation. But I am intrigued because I know that people love that series. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
intrigued about One Piece too, quite clearly,
Yes.
but it's just
I would love for you to read both of these, but,
yeah.
'cause I
Oh,
would love to hear your thoughts.
so what was your
It's
you read Berserk? You read that manga?
yes, I am fully current even on the stuff that they've done since Miura passed away, unfortunately. I have a Bailet tattooed on my arm. I love Berserk. It's one of my
Mm,
favorite things. I have all the individual Tankobon volumes up here.
wow.
So, it's great. It is very dark. It's certainly not something that everybody's gonna like. Um, you know, some of it, and I've talked with Shay about this too, because he feels similarly to me that he loves it as much as I do, but we both agree some of the really dark trigger warning stuff, like I think most of it, I think all of it serves a purpose, but sometimes the purpose it serves, I'm like, did it really justify how deep you went with this?
Mhm,
So like there is a purpose there. Don't get me wrong, but it's like you probably could have communicated that with slightly slightly less. Um, so I think that that's something that's probably important to keep in mind in some instances, but the yeah, it's just it's got me thinking. It's made me think about character and like how deep some of these characters are, like more than most series have, to be honest. Certainly more than any manga or anime ever have. Um, yeah,
wow.
it's really cool. And One Piece is kind of similar, to be honest. There's kind of less of the character depth side and just more of the funny enough the themes, right? That now that I'm that type of reader who wants to try to look for these things, it's like it's so fun to pick those things out, and every major arc of that story has made me almost every major arc has made me cry, which I
Wow.
can't say that for very many things. So
Oh, wow. I see Gavin is here in your chat, by the way, and he said that he didn't think he'd like Berserk,
yeah,
and he was pleasantly surprised. So
there you
that's
go.
high praise coming from Gavin. I know Gavin also loves One Piece and, listed that in his favorite fantasy series video, and it's
I don't
funny,
know Gavin. I need to check this out.
oh my gosh, Gavin is
What's up?
amazing.
What's up, Gavin? I gotta check out this channel apparently.
Yes, you've gotta check out Gavin, he's so
Okay.
fun, he's so much fun. Um, Wonderful. He was on Why Read last year, had a fantastic conversation
Oh,
with him. I think
great.
he also has a separate manga channel, but he also has Gavin Reads It All, where he really
Yeah.
does read it all, and he does it's just such fun content and hilarious content too. Aw, you're the best, Gavin. Love you. But yeah, I it's interesting because I was thinking about this. I posted my top 10 fantasy series video this year. I've been on BookTube for 4
Mhm.
years, and this is the first year that I've gotten the courage to do that, and I was nervous because Sanderson did not make my top 10, and I was like
How dare you?
I was so scared. I really was. Like, I was planning to do it last year, and I thought, "I'm gonna lose so many subscribers if I post this video." And, people are just gonna hate me in the comment section.
Mm.
2025 must be a really weird year because I posted my top 10, I did not mention Sanderson, and I did not receive a single comment coming after me about not including Sanderson,
Yeah.
like, not one. But I received several comments asking, "Why isn't One Piece on your top 10 fantasy series?"
That's so crazy how
That
the
is
tables
that
have turned.
if that's not telling about 2025
Yeah.
and the kinda year it is, what that means about fantasy trends, I don't know what
Yeah.
does. So, clearly,
Yeah.
I'm missing out. I mean, it is clearly fantasy, and, apparently, it's a pretty incredible journey.
It's so great. It's so great. I'm, like, probably just past halfway done because it's still ongoing, so we don't know exactly how many chapters it'll be, but I've been reading it off and on for so long. It's so long, but it's so worth it, right? If you go online, you can find like which chapters are for each major arc of the story. So that's how I split it up, and I sort of treat each arc like a book, and just like I'll read that, and I'll go read some other stuff, and then I'll come back for the next one, and that seems to work pretty well. It doesn't feel as overwhelming, but it's special, man. It would be there, and honestly, as much as I still do enjoy Sanderson, I'm not shocked that you didn't get a bunch of backlash because post Wind and Truth, it's kind of popular for people to rag on him. So
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
and it wouldn't have fit into my top 10 anyway because I did set the parameter that I'm only including series that I've either finished or that I've read every publication so far, or
Mm,
that if it's a trilogy within a larger series, like the Farseer trilogy, for example, within the Realm of the Elderlings, then I would just evaluate the trilogy. But
nice.
I have not read Wind in Truth. I don't know if I will. But I did read the first 4 books, and
Yeah.
I was a pretty strong Sanderson fan for a while there. But yeah, I think I just needed a break is how
Yeah.
I framed it, and the break has been ongoing for
Hey,
a
there's
long.
nothing wrong with that. There's too much stuff to read.
Yeah.
Um, by the way, Brian's here, hating on my EV Mux skills. No, I'm just kidding. I would love to talk about it. I'm very here for this. Brian's the man. Every once in a while, he'll give me like just a little nugget of wisdom on some booktube thing or whatever, and I'm so grateful for it because I find a lot of people aren't super forthcoming with feedback like that in some ways.
Oh,
Um,
really?
like maybe it's just me. I don't know. Like I've like for my job, for my PhD and stuff, like all we're doing is giving each other feedback. So it's like if you see somebody do something, it's generally considered good and constructive and like you're a good friend. If you're like, hey, this isn't that great, you can, respectfully, of course. Hey, you can improve this. Here's what you might think about trying or whatever. Um, and you approach it kindly and all those sorts of things. But with this, I haven't had too many people be like, hey, like this is cool, but like, have you ever thought about trying this thing or what? And I'm always open to feedback like that. So anyone listening, tear me apart. Let me know what you think would be better. I'm here for it. So I
I
appreciate people
never
who
get
do.
that kind of feedback on BookTube. I never get that kind of feedback,
That's funny. Well, it's
which
'cause your
I
videos
would
are
love.
perfect, right?
No,
That's
they're
that's what
not.
it is.
They are not. Thank you, but no. But that's very generous of Brian to do that for you, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool, though. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I have a list of stuff I wanna like, I gotta figure out this lighting thing because I look like a vampire with some of these, the way that these live streams go, I don't know, I always look just so I mean, I like being pale and vampiric, but sometimes there's a limit to it, you know? Uh,
It's
I
a good
saw
look.
I can't remember which I was on, I can't remember what video it was. I was a guest on somebody's channel. I can't remember which one it was, but I just remember seeing myself in the little square on the computer or whatever, and I was just like, "Oh, man, I really wish that I didn't look quite this deceased on on this."
Oh,
But, that's okay. We'll figure it out.
I've never ever thought that,
Oh,
honestly.
thank okay, that's good. May
I'm
I
just
probably
grateful. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
probably overthink it. Yeah, we're our own harshest critics, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
For sure, for sure. I know I am for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
How it goes. Vampires are cool though. Facts, right? So I should lean
yeah,
into it, maybe is what we're saying.
for sure. Yeah, and I've always struggled. Actually, I'm kinda that's kinda not true because I know one of my friends did reach out to me. He's like, "We need to work on your lighting." And I'm like, "Oh, is it that bad?"
I
But we
think it's
never really
fantastic,
got
yeah.
around to working on it, and I've just been trying to mess around on it with it on my own, which is a
Yeah.
challenge.
It's
Yeah,
hard. I don't know anything about tech, like, it's
me
hard.
neither.
Yeah.
Me
Oblivion seems
neither.
cool. I'm jealous of all these people with time to play video games. I'm struggling. Um, someday. Someday I'll get to it. I've had my
Yeah,
gaming PC for almost a year and haven't played a game, so, yeah,
that's oh, yeah.
that's how
You
it's going.
will eventually, I think.
We will.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh!
You mind oh, go ahead.
I was if you have a thought on that note, say it, 'cause I was gonna take a left turn.
Go ahead, take a left turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I've been thinking about this since I finally cornered you and convinced you to come on my channel. I was like, "I gotta ask this. I need to know the Assassin Elf story. I gotta
You
know."
don't know it. Yeah. I don't think anybody knows it, and I probably just confuse everyone when this comes up.
Well, if it's supposed to be a secret, you don't have to divulge, but I would love
No,
to,
it's not a secret.
hear what's up.
It's not
Okay.
it's actually ICFA related, since we were talking about ICFA.
Wow! Okay. Another
Yeah,
full
and let me
circle
see if I
moment.
can get the facts straight. Actually, it goes before ICFA. Oh, I remember what it was. I
Okay.
remember. Okay, this is there's actually a progression to how this happened. What happened was when I first came on BookTube, I had a friend. I wish he was still active, but my friend Gregory, he was a conspiracy theorist. He was always
Okay.
coming up with these fun conspiracy theories, and he said that his conspiracy theory about me is that I am secretly an elf because I never show my ears. Because I never pull back my hair to show my ears. So
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, she's secretly an elf." And so in a video just for fun, I took down this video because it was just a little I don't know. I got tired of it after a while. But I had a video up for a while where I did a Q&A and, I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I showed my elf ears. I had elf ears on.
Nice.
So, that became kind of like a funny inside joke in a way. And then what happened was at ICFA what happened? I'm trying to remember how this happened. There's a video on Philip's channel, and I don't remember everything he said anymore. I need to go back and rewatch it, but it was related to ICFA. He did a video and he shows himself crying on the thumbnail and it says, "I'm sorry, Jimmy." That's the name of the title of the video is "I'm sorry, Jimmy." And he talked about how he talked about ICFA and he made up this whole story about how I was this and my part in it was I was an assassin elf that came out of nowhere and started I don't remember. He made me look like a bad guy. I remember that. I started teaming up with AP against Philip, the nefarious,
Oh, no.
Doctor Fantasy. So I don't know. I that was basically where it started, and then after that, a lot of people took off with it. They're like, "She's the assassin elf of BookTube." So yeah, that's how it progressed. It just kind of like evolved out of that.
Yeah, that's so
Strange.
funny.
Yeah.
I love that. That's some of the fun like, you don't get stuff like that if it's not a close-knit community, right? And, like, that's such a cool, endearing thing about BookTube. I love that so much.
There's so much BookTube lore. Like, if you're around here long enough, you start learning all these weird stories.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I actually when you mention that, I actually am like, That's right. I don't think I've ever seen a video where you don't have your hair down like this. It always is covering your ears. So
Yeah,
maybe they're
I
right.
and I do put my hair up all the time when I'm at home because it's humid here, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I always feel like it looks nicer
It
down.
looks great. Yeah, it looks great. It's I struggle with it because I I don't know if you've ever experienced this with long hair. Mine is so frustrating. It's like the day after I wash it, it's so frizzy and dry and annoying that it just looks kind of awful. And then I get like 1 or maybe 2 good days, and then the next day it looks like wet and greasy and like I always say I look like Gollum, that it's
Yeah.
just like that's gross too. So it's like it's just easier to pull it back so I don't have to worry about timing my hair wash days with my video recording days. It's so annoying, I don't like it.
It's a struggle. So the
Yeah.
only way I can get rid of that is because I style my hair. 'Cause I
Mm,
like to use a hair dryer and, yeah, I use all types of styling stuff to
makes
make
sense.
sure it doesn't do that. Otherwise, it would look like a frizzy mess. And that's the other challenge is because like, I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this because I exercise. I either walk or jog in the mornings,
Mhm, mhm.
and I know that you're not supposed to wash your hair every day, but by day 2, my hair gets really greasy by the end of the day. Like, I
Yeah,
cannot go 3 days without washing it. Sometimes I do, but it's
yeah,
so greasy. It gets so greasy.
yeah, it's
Sorry
annoying.
about that.
I actually hadn't thought about that. I wonder how much of it is from like exercise and climate and whatever where you just sweat more that would make that happen.
Yeah,
That kinda makes
yeah.
sense.
I'm sure climate makes a big difference though, like how
Totally.
living in Florida especially, it's so humid there. Goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's,
Hey, Brian.
Brian, we gotta get pictures because I hear you, used to be, like, super, super jacked as well, right? So I need the long-haired Jack bell tube throwback.
So
That'd be
speaking of
awesome.
jacked, I wanted to ask you about this because I saw Samwise on Instagram post a picture of you with Renaissance
Oh,
periodization.
yeah.
Like, that guy is whoa.
Yeah, he is.
Well, so what's the story there? Were you on his channel?
Yeah, so, this is always so funny to me. When like,
Wow.
so I'm I'm a fitness guy, right? Like, that's, like, my thing, and then I was like, "Let me start this booktube channel." And now it's like I spend so much time on on booktube that it's like it's weird when people are like, "Oh, you do this other thing?" So, like, when my worlds and then when fitness people find out about it, they're like, "What is" so it's my worlds collide sometimes, and it's funny. But, yeah, so I was just kinda doing my normal day in, day out, whatever thing, and, you know, it's me and 2 other guys who work together, right? That we do, like, it's a lot of, like, online they typically, they call it online coaching, but it's essentially personal training that you do online. And, there's a lot of, like, educational piece to it because 'cause we're all PhD. One is actually graduated, and me and one other guy are almost done. So we do a lot of, like, educational piece of just, helping people learn about, strength and muscle growth and fat loss and that sort of stuff. And, we have been fortunate to have a lot of people connect with it, right? And, been able to, I don't know, do cool like, it's fun to we get to go on podcasts and stuff and, like, so it's yeah, it's I don't know, it's weird. I'm like, "You care about what I have to say? Whoa." But yeah, so then this guy who runs this company called Renaissance Periodization that is massive. It's one of the biggest companies in the space. I mean, their YouTube has, like, almost 4 million subscribers, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Um, that he just sent us a message on Instagram and was like, "Hey, like, can we fly you out and you come in our recording studio and we record a video?" And we're like, "What do you mean, can you? Of course, like, just name the day, right?" So that was wild. I've never had anything like that. Like, podcasts are awesome. It's always such an honor, but, like, that's a different level of, like, can I pay for your flight and you come, so wild. And I've learned so much from them over the years too. I mean, they've been a staple for a long time. And so that was kind of just a wild experience to meet somebody who you've seen online for an endless number of hours and learning from and stuff. And um, now he's here asking me questions about how to do things, which is weird and breaks my brain a little bit. But yeah, it's wild. In the video, we recorded that back in December actually, and the full video came out here recently. So it's funny to look back because that was a month after I did my bodybuilding competition. so I was still like really lean, and you know, my I hadn't regained as much of the normal healthy person appearance yet. So you can still see like my face is still a little sunken in and stuff. But so that's funny to snapshot in time, sort of. But yeah, it was amazing. Amazing. I don't even know. I'm almost speechless still.
I'm blown away because I sometimes go down rabbit holes of watching his videos.
Yeah.
Actually, that's been a fairly recent thing too, because I used to watch a lot of fitness influencers and health
Yeah.
influencer stuff, but then after you watch so many, you realize so many of them are like snake oil
Yeah.
selling
For
that
sure.
have no idea what they're talking about and just talking a big game. But he seemed like somebody who has his feet on the ground, and the fact that he
Yeah.
interviewed you, who is doing your research in the field, also speaks volumes to me,
Yeah.
that he's willing to actually look into a body of research and, I don't know, to check himself in to some
Sure.
degree. I'm not saying that he's perfect, I mean, nobody is,
Nobody is.
but I've enjoyed watching a lot of his videos, and
Yeah.
yeah,
He's super funny too. Yeah.
he is hilarious. He
Yeah.
has a terrible sense of humor sometimes.
Yeah. He's genuinely probably the most charismatic person I've ever met.
Yeah.
And like he's so interesting. The way I described it, um, I can't remember if it was to Sam or to Preacher, but it's like he is the most intelligent person you've ever met, but he's still in his like dick joke phase.
Yeah.
And it's so funny.
That's what I was thinking about because I saw a
Yeah.
video of his recently, and he was, like, shouting out his wife. He's like, "She's over on Instagram. Send her some dick pics. You're
Yeah.
welcome."
Yeah,
I
he's
was like,
he's
"Oh my
great.
goodness.
It's
Wow."
crazy. Yeah. But yeah, it was so cool. I go back and forth between like, wow, this happened to me. That's amazing. And then, but also like, bro, you've been going to school for 10 years. Like, own, like, yeah, you deserve
Yeah.
this. Right. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I don't know. That's like my lifelong journey is to, quit being too annoyingly humble. Like, be humble, but also own the cool stuff that you do. You know what I mean? Like, there's a balance
Yeah.
there. So I don't know. It's,
No, I
it's fun.
think it's awesome what you do, and I think it's actually
Thank you.
pretty interesting too, Jake, because if you wanted to, you could go that route on YouTube. You could make a video all about fitness. You
Sure.
can go that route if you wanted to because you're an expert in this field now. I mean,
Yeah,
you've
I
been
guess.
studying
Yeah.
it for 10 years,
Yeah.
and you have, a scientific approach to things, which
Mhm.
means, "Hey, this is what the research is saying today, and maybe tomorrow that changes," or whatever. Like, you
Sure.
have that mindset as that is so needed in that area
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
YouTube.
That's
It's
for
so
sure.
needed. So that's
Yeah.
something that I respect again about that guy's channel. But it's interesting because you chose to go the BookTube route,
Yeah.
and I find that really interesting. I find that really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's awesome. I mean, I honestly am like, "Hey, maybe I should message Jake and ask him, what do you think about creatine?" Or, "What do you think?"
Hey,
Like, would
I'm
that
always
bother
yeah.
him?
No, absolutely not. I'm always here for that. That's I love talking about that stuff. The only reason I didn't do that for YouTube is because the to be completely honest, the expected bar for like production quality is really high for like
Ah,
fitness YouTube. Whereas
mhm.
like for people who grow pretty quickly, right? Whereas for booktube, people don't really care that much.
That's true.
So I'm like, okay, this feels for me who knows nothing about tech or editing, and I don't have tons of money to pay somebody to edit all my stuff, and so it's this was an easier entry point, and it's just I talk about fitness all the time, and like I want to talk about books more. So like, why not
Yeah.
give myself that outlet also? And it also is just amazing to like if I had never started a booktube channel, maybe I wouldn't be friends with you. Maybe I wouldn't be friends with all these awesome people. And like I love that this has opened up this whole world for me.
Yes.
So
I'm happy. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not
oh, no,
saying
no,
you
no. Yeah.
twist your calling on you too. Not like that. It's not like that. I'm, like, so thrilled that you're part of the BookTube community, but
Oh,
man, I think a lot of people probably don't realize he is an expert. Jake
all
is
right.
the real deal. He's the
Thank
person
you.
you wanna reach out to if you have questions about that. Like, that's so cool to me. I mean, I am fascinated by exercise science. I mean, I'm ignorant, but I'm fascinated by it. I think it's such an interesting field,
Yeah.
and, uh, and yeah, it's also a growing field, right? Like, there's just so much that we're learning all the
Yeah.
time.
All
So,
the time. It's
yeah.
actually really crazy when you think about like how new the field is as a whole. You compare it to like other sciences and like chemistry and physics and things like that. Like they've been around for a minute, right? And a
Mhm.
lot of the things that they've figured out are it's evolving still, but a lot of it's pretty solid. Like we're not going to disprove gravity at this point, right? But exercise science is very young and it evolves so quickly. Like, and we're finding out stuff that a lot of the studies in the early several decades, like statistically, were not done particularly well. So, how
Oh,
much confidence can we have in those results? Not as much, right? So there's just so much there that is. It's not that we don't know anything, and we know a lot of stuff, but it's there's always room for it to be changing, and which is good for people like me who want to work in the space. And there's always something new to talk about, or there's always some cool research that you can do. So like there's some job security in that sense. And sometimes it's also frustrating though, because it's like I just want to know what's the best method.
ah,
Whereas what might seem like the best now, maybe 10 years from now, we're like, actually, like it wasn't horrible, but maybe we should do this instead. And
yeah,
so I don't know, ups and downs, but anything's like that, right? There's always going to be pros and
yeah.
cons to stuff. But
If you don't mind me pivoting again, I
yeah.
also wanted to ask you too about your video because you did a video recently about feeling insecure on BookTube, and
Oh yeah.
I was so surprised by that in a way because I feel like it takes a lot of confidence to just come on camera and to talk about books and start the camera, end the camera, no edits. But then to hear that you questioned yourself, which I think is so relatable too. I'm sure that you've heard in the comments that a lot of people feel the same.
Yeah.
I was just curious about your feelings going into that video, thoughts about that video, and also any feelings that have evolved since then, especially after reading the comment section.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for watching it, by the way. That
Oh,
video is,
welcome. Yeah.
um, I'm really happy with it. I think I did a pretty good job of voicing my feelings on it. Um, Even though I had to splice something in at the last minute because I was like, oh, I could have done that part better, but it worked out fine. But it's by a long shot not my most viewed video, but it is significantly the most engagement that any video's gotten, which
Mm,
is pretty
yeah.
cool. And I didn't expect nearly so many compliments. That's not what I
Mm.
promise. I wasn't fishing for that, but it made me feel good nonetheless. But yeah, there was just so many people relating, and so many people had some really great points about like just how valuable every different aspect of booktube is. Like the analysis stuff is amazing, but like also just how you connected to it personally and what you thought of it or whatever, right? But then also just you some people just want to listen to someone who is excited because they thought this was cool, and they just want to hear you talk about how it was cool. So um which like the objective Jake knows that, right? But nonetheless, when you're trying to do this, then there's always that emotional part that's just like, oh, I'm not doing this as good as, I can't get as excited about a book as John Minton does, or I can't analyze a book like Philip does, or like Johanna does, or like David does, or I can't talk about my personal emotional connection to these characters like Shay does, or like there's always those comparisons, which funny enough, in being in the fitness space, like that's the number one thing everyone talks about: quit comparing yourself to other people. But it's hard. It's easier said than done, always.
I don't
So
even know if it's totally possible to quit comparing. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like there's a
Yeah.
part of our brain that's what it does. Even when we're reading books, we're comparing it to other kinds of stories, we're just doing that. But
Mm,
I can also understand the challenges with that too, and
sure.
the struggles with that, which are so relatable. And I love that your comment section was so supportive and
Yeah.
love what you do. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it was so great. It was so great. And I really just came out of it like, dude, you're doing fine, right? Like, you don't have to worry about it, and you don't even have to like get better at analyzing stuff if you don't want to. Which like I knew that, but I also like it feels so good just to hear that from other people, and just get um that direct feedback. My girlfriend says this all the time, like like people aren't mind readers, right? Like we need to tell each other directly what we're feeling, therefore we can act accordingly. And I really felt that in that moment, just getting that direct feedback from people like, no dude, like you're good, like you don't have, it's cool if you want to learn more about those things and talk about those things, but like you don't have to. you know it was just so validating, and and great to hear those things, but also so interesting just to hear people talk about what they like what do they come to booktube for, and there was such a wide variety. And I don't know, I don't know, I almost didn't really think that much about making the video. I was just like, this has been on my mind, let me just talk about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been very pleasantly surprised at the reception, I guess.
Oh, well, you deserve it. You do.
Oh, thanks.
And it's funny because I was just talking about you, like, with a couple of other booktubers about, "Oh my gosh, your take is just so awesome and how much we love your channel and the way you
Oh,
talk about books." So, yeah, I definitely think you, uh, deserve all the support that you received from that, and thank you. That was, like, a real honor to be shouted out in that video as someone who's good at analyzing
oh
books, but
yeah.
I have to say, like, I did not have a clue when I started my channel what I was doing, and I just as I said in my comment to you, I'm on that journey with you. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm on that journey. Like, I think this is a journey. I don't think anyone just arrives, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I mean, maybe some people are experts in the field. I'm not denying that, but I do think that there can be a journey in learning to look at books more deeply, and if you
Yeah.
enjoy that, if that's what you wanna do, but I don't think you have to either, like people said in the comment section, that people bring even just a relatable human experience to a book, that is
Hmm.
valuable in and of itself. But
Yeah.
if you want to learn, like, there's resources for that, and it's if you think it's fun, you can learn, and it's a progression of skills, kinda like the
Yeah.
progression of skills that you went through in your degree and what
Yeah.
you're learning about, right?
100%. Yeah. Thank you so much for you're way too nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um,
I promise I'm being sincere.
I mean,
Yeah.
I believe you. I believe you, but it's still always so nice to hear. Um, I have a 2-hour streaming limit on EV Mux. I'm gonna have to cut this off here pretty soon. That's the
Okay.
downside of EV Mux. They cap you at each individual stream. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
but yeah, but this has been so amazing to talk to you. Thank you so much. This has been like I told you before we started recording, but like I needed a nice little positive pick me up here, and this has been exactly what I needed. So thank you so much for hanging out.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you so much, Jake, for having me on. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, we'll need to do it again soon. We should do that buddy read also.
Yes, yes,
Um,
for sure.
yeah. Oh, I forgot. I almost forgot to. I don't pay attention to the drama. Sorry. There's my thoughts. I don't like fitness industry drama. Um, okay. Thanks so much to everybody who hung out in the chat. I should have you on my channel more because the chat was bouncing more than
Oh, I'm
normal,
so
so that's
glad.
cool.
Thank you,
You
chat.
you bring the viewers. Anyone watching the replay, thanks for watching. Leave a comment. Let us know if you're somehow not subscribed to Joanna. Make sure you go do that. By the way, I should have said that at the beginning of the video, but she'll be linked in the description. Um, I think that's it. Thanks for hanging out on a Saturday, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thanks.